we're not really heading home, but we're going to head to YouHQ. That's actually a really bad segue, isn't it?
It is a really bad segue, yeah.
Let's invite Jez in to join us for our conversation before we make any more silly segues. Hi, Jez.
How you doing?
Guys, how you doing? That was a good segue. I like that. Well played.
Thank you. I will take that. There you go.
Every little helps with a compliment, Fred. Thank you, Jez. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. So, YouHQ. Give us a bit of a summary about what YouHQ is all about. I'm loving the T-shirt, by the way. Very cool.
Yeah, repping the stash, guys. There's, I'm sure I can get you guys a T-shirt if you'd like one as well at some point. YouHQ, there's four of us, four directors, all good friends from university, did a sports science degree and went on and did very different things with our lives. I became a PE teacher, so be kind to me, guys. Taught PE for 16 years, and I found in the last few years, possibly as a result of COVID, that the mental health and well-being of staff and students in schools was really struggling. It definitely was in the school I was working in, and from the conversations I'd been having with friends and people in education, I think it was becoming a growing issue, and decided to do something about it. So myself and my co-founder, we've gone full time on this project, and we've created what we believe is a fantastic app for students to log their mood and well-being, so that staff have the valuable data they need to try and support them as best they can. So really, what we started looking at the stats for mental health. It's obviously a buzzword that's used a lot of the time, mental health and well-being. We're trying to kind of break that noise and really get into schools and support as many students as possible, so that they feel like staff are there to help. Looking at some of the stats, I think 5 in 30 students in a classroom are likely to be suffering from some kind of mental health issue. So we are offering our app as a unique way for schools to change the way they care for their people. So at the moment, it's very much student focused, but on the roadmap, we are looking at ways we can support teachers as well, because we know there's teacher burnout out there. But really the way the app functions is students are regularly and consistently recording how they're feeling in that moment, their perceptions of their well-being, and then that data gets pulled across to pastoral staff for interventions to then happen, so that it doesn't become a bigger issue further down the line. So it's that real kind of prevention rather than cure method. I guess our kind of secret sauce that we use as well, one of our directors is a clinical psychologist in the NHS, and he loves something called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a type of cognitive behavioural therapy. It's really easy to use, and we've got some functionality built into our app which really sets us apart, so that students that are really struggling can use that. It's called values-based goal setting, so really thinking about what their personal values are and the person they might want to become, and setting some goals around that. We've built that into it as well to then give that extra kind of approach to their overall well-being. So it's been, for me, I've been a teacher, like I say, 16 years. I stopped teaching at the end of last term. So the last sort of 6 to 7 weeks has been a brilliant sort of fun journey for me, trying to grow a brand and talking to people like you about it, rather than running around a sports field.
Brilliant stuff, Jez. Thank you. As a teacher myself, by trade, I've been out of the classroom for a little while myself now, a bit longer than 6 or 7 weeks, but certainly 20 years under my belt. But if I was sat there as like a head of house or a head of year, and I'm thinking, you know what, this would be great for our PSHE lessons for some time. I come from a vertical tutoring background, but not all schools are like that. But let's say, I can see within my house this would be great for all my students. Can you unpick a little bit about how that might work in terms of sort of management on that sort of a level? If I'm trying to run on that as a head of house or in the pastoral side of that, and how you sort of go around supporting teachers and what it would look like, in a classroom, for either from a form tutor's point of view or from a PSHE sort of lesson. How is it being sort of worked on? And additional to that, what sort of training are you offering to staff about how they can then, when things get reported back into them, are you supporting staff with activities that, 3 of the things you mentioned there? Because you mentioned about some of these sort of CBT type approaches. Are students directed on those within the app themselves, or is that something that the teacher would support them with? How does all that sort of stuff work?
That is a lot of questions to ask.
Sorry, I'm excited about what you're asking. What you're offering,
I was
Jez,
counting.
so.
I think there's 8 in there. He's asked you.
I'll see if I can remember.
See how you get on.
My memory's rubbish. The first question was, how might it look for a head of year or head of house or someone in that pastoral role?
Yeah, and trying to manage it in that sort of pastoral setting.
got this dual platform. So the students log in on their end. It's ever developing, as you can imagine. But when they log mood in that moment, or they fill out something called a Who5, which is a very simple 5-question survey, that data gets pulled across to a teacher admin side of the platform. So if you're head of house, you can log in and you can look at your house, your year group. You can filter it by class. You can filter it in lots of different ways. The other amazing thing that our app does is you can filter by mood and wellbeing score. So it all gets pulled across in a really lovely visual way. So heads of house can then start looking at that data, and they can start creating focus groups if they've got students that are struggling with mood and wellbeing. Students can actually allocate a reason to why they're feeling a certain way. So if they're feeling low, they might say it's because they're tired or they're struggling with their sleep. And if they're feeling great, they can put a reason in there as well so that they can be celebrated and praised. So it's really great extra information for pastoral members of staff, tutors and heads of year to either have an intervention with kids that are struggling, group them on the app, but not necessarily put them in physically in a room together, but manage and monitor them, and then celebrate those kids that are really doing well. The other great thing that our app does is it's got really clever API links with the safeguarding companies, so that if a student's mood suddenly drops off, or wellbeing score drops off, or there's a goal that's been set or a value that doesn't look quite right, we've got really great links with some of these cyber safety companies and safeguarding companies. So those members of staff can actually log those safeguarding issues very, very quickly. So it just removes that barrier to then have to go away to yet another application to log in. So that's how that looks for those pastoral members of staff. I have totally forgotten the second question.
So it was more about, so let's say a group of students have been reporting anxiety as a particular wellbeing need. How does the app then support teachers, or if you've got a leadership role, middle leadership role on a pastoral side, what sort of support are there for the teachers to then help those students? Or is it a case that the students get the help, a sort of self-help within guidance within the actual app itself? Or is there both?
That's a really good question. We have resources built into the teacher admin side to support the teachers. We actually make a lot of our content ourselves as well. So we're creating podcasts, blogs, all sorts on our website. You can see it at youhq.co.uk. But it really, it isn't a training platform. Like there's a lot of the wellbeing companies out there are CPD and training, but there is support built in there, and we do flag things like ACT and CBT to support the teachers. But our content that we're making supports them. But it's a really good point you make. There is, within the student side, it is sort of self as therapists. So thinking about their values, the tutor might lead on those sessions. So I think another part of your questions was, I use this as a teacher myself with a year 7 tutor group, lesson. We might watch a video together, thought-provoking, think about what that means, and then start looking at what values are. Can we set our values? I listened to a brilliant podcast today with Karen Brady, and she was saying that all her success was down to her knowing what her values were when she was young, which I thought was really interesting. So a lot of the PSHE work that is being done in schools using our platform will really use that values-based goal-setting side to help the students, and then they can go away and use it by themselves. Again, we're trying to really improve self-awareness, emotional intelligence within these students, so that they have that, so they can go on and be really successful later on in their lives. So that's the concept there behind it.
Great stuff, thank you. I think I'm spent with all my questions for now.
I haven't seen him so enthusiastic in ages, so take that as a compliment, Jez. I just wanted to kind of follow up, I guess, which is obviously you've got your solution, you're on a journey. What kind of evidence or kind of insights have you got from schools in terms of how it's been having a positive impact on children so far?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, we've had fantastic feedback. Actually, last week we were up in Leicester. Leicestershire County Council are piloting our platform with some of their schools up there. So we went into the schools, spoke to the schools. I mean, you guys will know this better than most. Every school in the UK is totally different. And going into schools all in the same county, totally different. But the feedback we've had has been really positive. I mean, look, we're under no illusions that staff are struggling for time. Some schools are struggling for tech. We've tried to make the app as flexible and adaptable as possible to the different circumstances of each school. But in general, really positive. I mean, what we found is if it's flagging students that are struggling, then even if they're not enjoying necessarily using the app and logging their mood or setting loads of goals, if they're clicking on a sad face and that starts a conversation with a good member of staff to help that student, then that's fantastic. And the sort of feedback we're getting is most students are more willing to reach out on tech, which some in our generation might say that's a shame, but unfortunately that is the way it is now. And that is really supporting those guys. And again, the high flyers, we're getting a chance to really celebrate. As a director of sport myself, I often didn't know if students were getting into county football teams or winning athletics medals at the weekend. But if they're putting those goals and they're ticking them off and that data gets pulled through, then staff can have really positive conversations with the kids. And that just builds really great, meaningful relationships in schools, which for me, teaching was all about those great, meaningful connections with students.
Absolutely. One thing you just raised about obviously was the difference between the student acquisition and input and the staff side. So for those listening, I take it you're an iOS, Android app for students and browser-based for staff to access data and reporting?
Yeah, so actually it's available as an app, Apple app and Google Play. So the staff side, they can actually access all the data.
Okay.
The app, so it can be used as an app or web. Well, yeah.
And although we're vendor agnostic in sharing all our things, when you talk about integration for your elevating any concerns, I'm assuming you're talking about the safeguarding company, My Concern, and CPOMs, those type of solutions for integration?
They're the two obvious ones, and they're the two that we've been talking to. But we have been talking to other companies. We've had some really great conversations with companies like Smoothwall as well.
Yeah.
Brilliant stories. Again, I haven't got long. I've probably gone over already, but you can tell I'm really passionate. But yeah, we've had some schools that have Smoothwall, and something's written in this goal and it's picked up on, and then an intervention's come through. So yeah, the relationship with those companies has been brilliant. And actually for us, pivoting on that, we didn't think it was going to be a safeguarding link. That wasn't part of the plan, but it has become part of the product, and it's become a really strong part of the product as well.
That's really good to hear. And really completely separate to this, we're talking and sharing. I'd like to have a conversation separately with some of our safeguarding technology as well, because there's a good alignment with some of that functionality.
Yeah, maybe the Internet Watch Foundation as well, given the conversation.
So thinking about what we've heard today, I'm a school leader. I'm really keen to find out more. How's the best way to go about getting a feel for YouHQ?
So our amazing creative director, who was my best man at my wedding, Martin, has created a fantastic website, youhq.co.uk. Go to there. We offer a free 7-day trial for a group of teachers to trial it as a student and as a teacher. And then from there, we've got 2 separate packages that can be tried. We've got YouHQ Essentials, which is a cheaper version, which has not all the functionality, but most of it built in, and then the complete package from there. But do just get in touch. And also at YouHQ for Schools is our social media handle. I hope I've got that right, or our social media manager is going to kill me. But yeah, please do look at the website or follow us on social media and get in touch, because we are really, as you can tell, really passionate about getting this into as many schools as possible, as quickly as possible, so we can support as many kids as possible that are struggling with mental health.